You see those health headlines all the time, right? This one thing increases your risk of that disease. But what does that really mean? Well, today, we're going to cut through all that noise and demystify a key concept that scientists use to get real answers: attributable risk.
And I know it sounds super technical, but trust me, getting a handle on this one term can totally change the way you see health science. It is an incredibly powerful tool for clarity, and we are going to break it all down.
So here's the deal. There's one and only one right answer to this question, but it's surrounded by some really common mix-ups. We're going to treat this like a puzzle. First, I'm going to show you the piece that fits perfectly. Then, we'll look at the other pieces and figure out exactly why they just don't belong.
Okay, let's dive right in. What is the actual scientific definition of attributable risk? To put it simply, attributable risk is the amount of disease that you can directly blame on one specific thing. And when we say exposure, that could be anything, from smoking a cigarette to being around a certain chemical. This is the metric that lets scientists isolate that one factor and measure exactly how much trouble it's causing.
Think of it this way. It answers one really specific question. How much of this disease would just vanish if this one exposure never existed in the first place? It's all about pinpointing the impact of that one thing and nothing else. Sometimes the best way to really get what something is to get crystal clear on what it isn't. So, to make sure this idea really sticks, let's bust a few common myths. All right, myth number one. This is a big one. People often think attributable risk is just the overall risk of getting a disease, for everybody. And look, it's an easy mistake to make, but it completely misses the whole point of the measurement.
This slide just lays it out so clearly. Think about it like this. Attributable risk is a laser-focused spotlight. It's shining right on a specific exposure and what it does to the group that was exposed. But total population risk, that's a giant floodlight. It just blasts light on everyone, whether they were exposed or not, all mixed together. Okay, on to myth number 2. This one is pretty much the total opposite of what it really is. Some people think it's the risk for folks who weren't exposed, kind of like the baseline risk you have no matter what. But nope, that's not it either.
Yeah, look at this comparison. The risk for the unexposed group, that's your starting point, your baseline. Attributable risk is all about the extra stuff, the additional sickness that gets piled on top because of the exposure. It's not asking, where did we start? It's asking, how much worse did this one thing make it?
And finally, myth number 3. This is where it gets a little tricky with all the jargon. You see terms like attributable risk, excess risk, rate ratio, and it's so easy to just lump them all together and think they mean the same thing. But in epidemiology, those little differences, they are absolutely crucial.
And here's the key difference. Attributable risk is all about public health impact. It answers how many actual cases of this disease are we seeing because of this exposure. A rate ratio, on the other hand, measures the strength of the connection. It tells you how much more likely one exposed person is to get sick. So one is about the big picture, the population level burden. The other is about an individual's odds.
Okay, so we've got the definition down. We've busted the myths. But so what? Why does this one number matter so much in the real world? Well, this is where the rubber meets the road, where data turns into decisions that can actually save lives. Attributable risk is basically this powerful 3-step engine for public health. Step 1, you isolate a risk factor. Let's say air pollution in a city. Step 2, you measure its precise burden. You figure out exactly how many asthma attacks, for example, are directly attributable to that pollution. And then step 3, that hard data can inform super targeted policies, like creating clean air zones right where they'll do the most good. I mean, this quote from our source material just nails it. It's all about figuring out how much of the disease burden is due to a specific risk factor. Once you know that, you know where to focus your resources, your time, your money, to make the biggest possible difference.
All right, let's bring this all home. If you're going to walk away from this with one single idea, what should it be?
If you remember one thing, make it this. Attributable risk isn't about some vague general chance of something happening. It's about specific responsibility. It points a finger and says, this much of the problem, it's because of you.
So now you know. The next time you see one of those health headlines, you can ask the real question, the smart question. Are they talking about the strength of the connection, or are they talking about the actual real-world burden? How much of that risk is truly attributable to this one factor? Thanks for tuning in.